Hello everyone, first news update for 17th of April. Now it's about 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public pay attention to, and I hope you will find this episode interesting and informative. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything. It will help to deal with the extremely aggressive algorithm that constantly tries to crash my updates, my videos. If you can share information about my channel with your friends so that I will manage to reach wider audience. And also, if you like my work, if you find my channels informative, interesting, please consider to support this project with a donation through PayPal or Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. Many thanks to everyone who already helped. That's been said, let's go through some news now, and I will start with the report of TASS news agency that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed liberation of Kalinovo settlement in a DPR. Let me show you this area, dear friends. It's a Pokrovsk direction, northern eastern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. This is a Kalinovo settlement which is liberated, and if you remember a few days ago I did said that most likely Russian militaries have decided to neutralize this salient that was created as a result of Russian pincer offensives from western and eastern sides, and well, that's exactly what is happening. Kalinovo is liberated, and also Vzglyad newspaper is reporting based on its sources that Russian troops also liberated settlement of Valentinovka, and currently battles are taking place for liberation of Sukhi Balki settlement, which is in operational encirclement already. When it comes to battle map, dear friends, also I give you an update that Russian armed forces on a Kursk salient area, or borderline strip, basically what is left from that Kursk salient, Russian troops, according to a number of sources, establish control over their monastery complex on the northern eastern side of Garnal settlement. Previously, I reported that 200 to 300 military personnel of Kiev regime and possibly NATO mercenaries were trapped in this area. They refused to surrender. At one point, officer of that was Kiev regime's officer that was trapped there was conducting negotiations with the Russian side to organize safe surrender, but that officer, according to media reports here in Russia, was killed, and there are several of his fellow comrades. And after that, whomever take charge on this grouping of forces refused to surrender, and the Russian side had no option but to start an assault operation. And reports are that entire grouping of forces of Kiev regime that was trapped here were neutralized. I guess majority from these 200 to 300 military personnel of Kiev regime was killed. Some might manage to run away through these forestry areas, and number of servicemen of Kiev regime probably end up being a POW. It is a possibility. Russian Defense Ministry did not yet confirm this progress of the Russian armed forces, but I guess today we will receive confirmation of that. And there are currently only 2 settlements is under control of Kiev regime in that borderline strip between Kursk and Sumy regions. These settlements are Aleshny and Garnal. Let's continue with some more news, and we have this information from that is reported by TASS news agency that Ukraine's so-called parliament rather voted to extend martial law and mobilization in Ukraine. So it's official now. I reported yesterday that Zelensky asked rather to prolong martial law and mobilization for another 90 days, and decision was made, and therefore no questions left. There will be no summer elections in Ukraine, as some even experts were predicting, because this was demand according to media reports of the Washington. So much emboldened Zelensky after he received support from the globalists and globalist puppets in European states. First of all, UK and France, globalist puppets in charge of European states. First of all, UK, France, Germany. Zelensky get really quite aggressive, actually. He is emboldened. He is attacking US day in, day out nowadays, criticizing Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, official envoy of Trump, special envoy of Trump, Witkoff. He is criticizing just about everybody that he does not like in US. That's how emboldened he is, by the way, with this support of the globalists and their puppet regimes in Europe. And well, even though he knew perfectly well that Washington wants elections to take place this summer, he made decision to prolong martial law and maintain power in his hands. And that's what he did. This is clearly a slap in the face of Trump's administration, and I think some reaction has to be made from Washington. There have to be some reaction on that. Dutch news agency is also reporting that Russian ambassador in London stated that the so-called coalition of willing is preparing intervention into Ukraine. No surprises there. I was saying this all along, even before this coalition of willing was created. The main goal of the coalition of willing, prompted by the UK and France, is to lay the groundwork for intervention into Ukraine to preserve the ruling regime. Russian ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kelin, said, "Our position is very clear. We perceive the ongoing negotiations initiated by the London and Paris in essence preparations for a foreign intervention to preserve the ruling regime." He told us in an interview, "This has already happened in our history during the Civil War," and he's recalling times when after revolution in early years of 20th century, there was a civil war here in Russia on the territory of Russia mainly, although Russian Empire. That was collapsed due to actions of the Bolsheviks. And there was a fight, internal conflict between Bolsheviks or Red Army and the Mensheviks or the White Army, as they were called. And UK, by the way, a number of other Western countries were actively supporting, including with the troops, this White Army. So they were intervening into the civil war, and that's what I believe Kelin is referring to. So for Russia, all this is absolutely unacceptable. As for security guarantees, they are quite feasible without any foreign deployment. So once again, Moscow is reiterating that deployment of NATO troops into territory of the so-called Ukraine is absolutely unacceptable. And even though Kelin didn't say it during this interview, but other Russian officials said many times that any foreign troops on Kiev-controlled territory will be treated, any NATO troops on Kiev-controlled territory will be treated as combatants, and we'll understand what that means. Still, London, Paris, they are going ahead with this incursion into Ukraine. Recently, even Poland stated that they want some piece of it. They're no longer gonna support the Kiev regime for nothing. So more and more countries are raising their voices and want to benefit from this Ukrainian crisis. And I think it's only a matter of time, and British and French troops, potentially Polish troops, also troops from Baltic Chihuahua states, Litva, Latvia, Estonia, will be deployed on this on territory of the so-called Ukraine. Only question I have, will they dare to send these troops beyond Western Ukraine, or they will just be stationed in Western Ukraine? And this is crucial, because if they will stay only in Western Ukraine, in that case, theoretically speaking, it might be possible to avoid direct clashes, at least large-scale clashes between Russian and these NATO troops. But if if they will be deployed outside of Western Ukraine, then that's a whole different story. And obviously those troops that will enter central and southern, central and northern or eastern parts of Ukraine are destined to be destroyed. That's for sure. And citizens of these EU and NATO member states should think about it, because I don't think they're gonna see I don't think they want to see their fellow citizens in the military to go back to their countries in the body bags, right? So to avoid this, they have to try and influence their own crazy politicians so that no NATO troop deployments will take place yet again on Kiev control territory in general, but especially outside of Western Ukraine, because this is definitely no for Russia. Absolutely. When it comes to Western Ukraine, you know my take on the fate of Ukraine, this former Soviet Republic. I'm 100% convinced this territory is destined for full-scale disintegration. Western Ukraine eventually will end up under NATO control and will be claimed by Poland, most likely Hungary, Romania, maybe Slovakia, and even Bulgaria, by the way. But Poland, Hungary, and Romania for sure, 100%, and the rest of the territory, directly or indirectly, but will be controlled by Russia. Number of regions will join Russia, I have no doubts about it. Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, maybe entirely or maybe parts of Sumy and Chernigov regions will most likely, by the way, join Russian Federation, as DPR and LPR did, as Kherson and Zaporozhye regions did, and as Crimea did in 2014 already, right? But theoretically speaking, it is a possibility that Kiev and surrounding couple of regions will maintain on the political map, or will be maintained on the political map as a landlocked quasi-state under the name of Ukraine, but only in Russian sphere of influence, completely free from globalist and influence of the globalists and the Western ruling class. That's the fate of Ukraine as I can see it, right? Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that's how I see future of this former Soviet Republic. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that NATO chief once again ruled out Ukrainian membership under the peace deal. So Ukraine was never promised NATO membership as a part of any potential settlement of its conflict with Russia. The military bloc's Secretary General Mark Rutte has stated. He made the remarks in an interview with the broadcaster Me Ukraina while on a surprise trip to Ukraine on Tuesday. So I don't really understand why these high-ranking officials in the West are still peddling this topic of Ukraine joining NATO, which is not going to happen ever, right? Western parts of Ukraine, eventually, once they are reclaimed by Poland, Hungary, and Romania, of course, eventually will be part of NATO, but rest, absolutely impossible, and therefore, topic of Ukraine as we knew it joining NATO is absolutely nonsensical topic, and I find it strange that Secretary General of NATO or number of other officials in the West, time after time after time, are talking about NATO and Ukraine. This is, maybe they are asked to comment on this matter every other day, and they are repeating themselves that no Ukraine in NATO, but in any case, it's absurd, right? It's just annoying and just a waste of time. And dear friends, before I continue, let me ask you, if I may, to subscribe to my Rumble channel if you are watching this video on YouTube. And if you can, please watch my updates on Rumble. Currently, our community there is just 3,100 members. View numbers, unfortunately, are quite low, and this is really unfortunate because my channel on Rumble is monetized, and if I had on Rumble somewhat similar views as I do on YouTube, Rumble platform could be in that case quite significant source of support to this project. So therefore, if you can, please subscribe to my Rumble channel and watch my videos on Rumble. And also one more topic, as you know, dear friends, I have live streams, weekly live streams on Mondays and Fridays. Monday live stream on YouTube, Friday's live stream gonna be on Rumble from now on. And in case you have you want to make sure that your question or certain topic, just about anything, will be highlighted during the stream. And also, simultaneously, if you want to support my work and this project, you can send your question or the commentary through Patreon, Boosty, or PayPal. And of course, I will start live streams, this Q&A part of the live stream, with your questions or comments that I receive through these platforms. And then after that, I will be engaged with the chat, as I always do, by the way. So this way, you will make sure that your topic that you are interested in being highlighted and discussed during the stream. At the same time, you will support my work and this project. So please consider. And I remind you, dear friends, tomorrow, if there will be no technical issues, at 6 o'clock evening time, I will have a live stream on Rumble. It's gonna be community chat, news update, community chatter. It's always interesting, by the way. It's always interesting and good opportunity to have exchange of opinions with the community in real time. That being said, let's continue with some more news. And RT is reporting that the US could cancel almost all NATO funding, according to New York Times. When I see this article on RT, I could not believe this. And I'm still skeptical, by the way, that this is what Washington is planning. But I don't know. New York Times are reporting about it. So let's go through some details here. The administration of the US President Donald Trump is considering a budget proposal that would eliminate almost all funding for international organizations like United Nations and NATO. New York Times reported on Monday, citing officials and internal memo. The initiative is a part of a plan that would see the State Department's budget reduced by nearly 50%, to unnamed officials told the outlet. It's also reportedly suggests curtailing international peacekeeping operations, all of their State Department's educational and cultural exchanges, and defunding humanitarian assistance and global health programs by more than 50%. It is unclear whether Secretary of the State Marco Rubio is on board with their plan. Associated Press sources have confirmed their proposal, but stressed that it must undergo multiple rounds of the review before being submitted to Congress for approval. One senior US official, cited by the agency, called the budget outline aggressive in its cost-cutting goals. So I don't know, dear friends, what to make of this report. Maybe Trump's administration is really planning to cut spendings, including on UN and NATO, this much, about 50%, or even completely. But well, New York Times and AP are positive on that. So let's see. In any case, this is a significant topic, and of course, if any update on that, I will report about it in next updates. Also, Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that Trump rejects arms deal with Ukraine. Also interesting news. So US President Donald Trump has rejected the $50 billion deal with Ukraine that was offered for the supply of weapons, Bild writes, German media outlet. As reported by Bild, the US president rejected the offer of $50 billion arms deal with Ukraine. The publication notes that the head of the White House has not expressed a desire to support Kiev, even if he receives EU funds in return. Trump rejected the $50 billion deal. He does not want to help Kiev, even if he gets $50 billion in EU funds in return. The German newspaper reports, according to Bild, Ukraine urgently needs new air defense systems. However, the American leader is more interested in negotiations aimed at resolving the conflict than in profiting from arms supplies to Ukraine. And if true, by the way, I mean, that's a right take on part of Trump for sure. I don't know also, I mean, this report is somewhat similar to previous one. I don't know what to make of it. Is it true? Is it not? Who knows? Who knows? We will find out. But what we know for now is that since the inauguration, if I'm not mistaken, Trump and his administration did not approve any new military aid packages for Kiev regime. All military aid or financial aid that Kiev regime is receiving from US was approved during the previous administration. So maybe this is true. Maybe Trump and his administration really understands that in order to maintain relevance on the geopolitical scale, US needs cooperation with Russia, not the hostility, but cooperation with Russia. And if that is the case, then it does make all the sense if White House will decrease its assistance to Kiev regime and eventually stops any assistance and will focus more on improving relationships, almost completely destroyed relationships with Russia. I said there quite a number of times before what is necessary as a first step from US on this direction. Of course, US has to stop send any arms, munition, finances, and intelligence to a Kiev regime. And also Washington has to agree that a crime was committed by US under previous administration, but by US, because Biden and his inner circle was not acting as a private citizens, right? They were acting on the name of US. So Trump also has to admit that yes, US committed a crime against Russia and has to and obligated basically for concessions in order to avoid Russian retaliation, which will inevitably come if US will not agree on concessions. And also, as I already said, on cutting any ties or any support, any assistance to Kiev regime, right? And I think this is a possibility. I think this is possibility. Cooperation with Russia is enormously important for US to maintain its relevance on a geopolitical scale. And therefore, this is not even a question. If Trump and his administration are really thinking about future of America, I mean, this is a no-brainer. They have to make a deal with Russia. Absolutely have to, right? And they might. And therefore, who knows, maybe Bild is reporting truth in this particular case, and Trump actually refused to take this $50 billion from EU for weapons that then eventually would be transferred to Kiev regime. That's possibility. RT is also reporting that Intel, according to Social Democrats in Germany, SPD party, Intel reports will sober up incoming German chancellor on Ukraine missiles. I reminded your friends that Merz quite a number of times emphasized that he is in support of transferring Taurus long-range cruise missiles to Kiev regime, which means that it's German militaries that have to be deployed into Kiev-controlled territory and they have to be involved in the launches of these missiles. And I reminded your friends, and one member of our community commented on that recently on YouTube, that it will take quite a time before either current planes in hands of Zelensky's regime will be transformed to be able to launch Taurus missiles, or in other case, Germany had to transfer to Kiev regime Tornado planes, right? Tornado planes that probably are retired already, but can be redeployed And that's that. If that is the, because not every plane can launch Taurus missiles. By the way, F-16s, for example, that Kiev regime is operating now, are not capable of that, or MiG-29s or Su-27s. So either these planes have to be modernized, or Germany or other NATO member states have to provide Kiev regime with the planes that are capable of launching Taurus missiles. And these planes are F-15s, I believe, Tornado, old generation plane that I'm not sure if is still operational in any European country. Maybe they are. Also, Eurofighter Typhoon can launch these missiles. French Rafale planes capable of, I believe, launching these missiles. And that's about it. I'm not sure if French Mirage 2000s are capable of launching these Taurus missiles. Maybe they are. And if so, then, well, Kiev regime does have several Mirage 2000s. So let's see. Maybe Russian militaries have to intensify their long-range strikes on air bases of the Kiev regime to make sure that as much planes are destroyed as possible, so that in case Taurus missiles being deployed, Kiev regime would not have much capabilities to actually, Kiev regime and Germany as militaries will have not much capabilities to launch these missiles. But anyways, Taurus may never enter Ukraine, because yet again we have this report that classified briefing would sway Germany's chancellor future chancellor, for God's sake. I mean, every time there is a report about Merz, different terminologies used. Chancellor designate. What the hell is that? Future chancellor. Just write it as it is. Don't make it mess, man. Anyway, sorry, dear friends. I'm getting confused time to time. You know, when I read this new terminology being used about same freaking person or the same freaking topic. So classified briefings would sway Germany's future chancellor Friedrich Merz from delivering Taurus cruise missiles to Ukraine. Matthias Mierk, the leader of the Social Democrats, has stated, speaking to the news channel NTV on Wednesday, Merck criticized Merz's readiness to deliver their Taurus and risk an open confrontation with Russia. We have always been against it, Merck said. I assume that Friedrich Merz, once fully informed by intelligence agencies, will receive their issue clearly. We will then make the decision together, he added. So, I mean, it's good if German intelligence will persuade this future chancellor of Germany, Merz, to stop messing around and making some crazy statements and provoking Russia, because it is dangerous. It is dangerous. If I was Russian president, by the way, I would not wait for deliveries of Taurus missiles. I will bomb all the places, entire military industrial complex of Germany and all the military bases and their warehouses where Taurus missiles are located. I'm not joking, by the way. I would take a preemptive strike. And Russia has every right to take preemptive strikes, because threats are real, right? This is not some hypothetical. Threats are real, and there are a number of countries. NATO, I don't give a damn if they are NATO member states or not. US not gonna kill itself because of this Chihuahua states, right? US not gonna get involved, trust me on that. So if it was up to me, I would definitely take action, by the way, against Germany, France, and UK, right? And these countries will be demilitarized completely, as they should, right? We cannot trust France and UK to have nuclear weapons, and they have to, you know, one way or another, but these countries have to be denuclearized for sure. And Germany, by the way, we cannot trust Germany to have long-range weapon systems, and Germany also has to be demilitarized. And I don't give a damn what will it takes. Even if it's a nuclear strikes, let's do it, man. Let's do it. But we cannot afford to let these psychopaths threaten millions of Russian citizens with their weapon systems that they have. currently, right? Because they are not serious people, they cannot be trusted, they are threat for entire humanity. As I said many times before, Western ruling class, globalists, and their puppet regimes and the puppets are existential threat for humanity. And Russia has every right to take preemptive strikes on France, UK, Germany to demilitarize these countries. It's only 1 hour, by the way. If order is given 1 hour, and none of these countries have military capabilities or military industrial complex. 1 hour, that's it. And trust me, UK and France would not be able to launch their nuclear missiles. They would not be able to. They will have none. That's how things should be done, by the way, in my understanding of the situation. But maybe, yet again, I mean, maybe I am just not maybe, I'm definitely not the person who should make such decisions, right? Because once there was a Georgian Ossetian in power in Moscow, Stalin, we all know that person, we are familiar with the name, right? And well, he was quite something, isn't it? And at least, by the way, I mean, you can think whatever you want about Stalin, but at least no one was messing around when he was in power, especially after destroying, absolutely demolishing Nazi Germany, right, and its allies. And yes, I mean, like it or not, but I think his stronger stance definitely put everyone in their places. And these Chihuahua states were not barking, really, like they do now. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that Trump shut down Israel. And by the way, on the previous topic, did Russia ever threaten, Russian officials, by the way, did Russian officials ever threaten any of these NATO member states that already are directly involved in the conflict against Russia? No, Russia did not. Do Russia has a right on a preemptive strike because it is obvious that these states are hostile and are committing acts of war against Russia almost on a daily basis? Is it true? It is true, right? So Russia has every right to conduct preemptive strikes, and if I am not mistaken, by the way, even UN Charter allows countries for preemptive strikes when threat is absolutely real, right? And in this particular case, threat is real, of course. I mean, all the countries that I mentioned are directly involved in aggression against Russia in this proxy war and committing acts of war against Russia literally every other day. So Russia has every right to conduct preemptive strikes, and if it comes to it, maybe that's exactly what will happen. Maybe one day Putin will say, you know what, I had enough of this nonsense. Let's do what is necessary now, because we try easy way, it did not work. Let's teach them a lesson hard way now. Maybe he will say that, and 1 hour, just 1 hour, by the way, and France, Germany, UK are completely demilitarized. And I mean completely. RT is reporting that Trump shut down Israel's plan to attack Iran. Well, another country that has to be denuclearized, by the way, is Israel, of course. Iran does not have nuclear weapons, and I'm 100% convinced, by the way, Iran is not working on the building of atomic bombs. Otherwise, they would build it already. They are capable of building atomic bombs, at least their basic atomic bombs, for last at least 20 years, 15, 20 years. Did they build atomic bombs? They did not, right? So we have no reason to these mistrust statements from the ground that they have no plans currently to build the nuclear weapons, right? But Israel, according to information that is available in open sources, is a nuclear state and definitely has to be denuclearized. No questions about that. Israel should transfer its nuclear warheads to US, or US, by the way, no one else, or Russia. or China, by the way. Okay, I mean for these countries, Israeli nukes will be, in these countries Israeli nukes will be safe, but India, okay, send them to India, but Israel has to be denuclearized. That's for sure, by the way, 100%. And this information only confirms that I am correct, because Israeli leadership is acting crazy and are extremely dangerous for region and for entire world. So US President Donald Trump has rejected Israel's proposal to strike Iran's nuclear sites, New York Times reported on Wednesday evening, citing White House officials and others familiar with the matter. Trump reportedly chose instead to pursue a new deal with Tehran, and already there was first round of negotiations in Oman a couple of days ago, and additional rounds are planned, and hopefully relationships between Tehran and Washington will de-escalate, because it is not in the interests of US for sure to get involved in yet another forever war. And even though I'm not military expert, I'm personally convinced that US is in no position to even hope about defeating Iran. Pentagon cannot defeat Iran, by the way. Just cannot. They cannot defeat Houthis, for God's sake. They cannot defeat Houthis. How are they gonna do with Iran? So therefore, Trump is, yet again, if this report is correct, then I mean Trump's administration is clearly acting on their promise that they are not a war party. At least that's the impression, right? So according to Times, Israel had drafted plans to attack Iran's nuclear facilities in early May, aiming to delay its ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more, after considering combination of airstrikes and commando raids. The Jewish state reportedly proposed an extensive bombing campaign that would have lasted more than a week. Israeli officials had hoped that the US would not only greenlight the operation but also actively support it. Trump, however, shut down the plan earlier this month following a rough consensus in the White House. Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pat Hegseth, and the Director of the National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard were among the top administration members who reportedly raised the concerns that the strike would spark a wider conflict with Iran. Of course it would, by the way. I mean, there can be no questions about that, isn't it? Iranian militaries or Iranian leadership not gonna sit around there and do nothing while their country being bombed, right? Of course they will retaliate, and retaliate strong, harsh, and very day. US, trust me, mark my word, dear friends, if ever US attacks Iran, on the very first day, Iran will transfer military hostilities on US soil. And if you think Iran has no assets in US, then I don't know, think twice, by the way. Think again about it. Of course Iran does. Of course, as they should, right? There must be some cells in hostile countries that, if necessary, will be activated. Otherwise, they will do no harm whatsoever. But if Iran is attacked, these assets will get active. And I guess they already know, they have pre-planned everything. What they're gonna do, when, how, with what, right? So therefore, good decision, good call on part of all these guys, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, Pat Hegseth. I'm a bit surprised that Pat Hegseth was against it. That's something new. Yeah, I mean, good call on part of Washington, by the way, that they did not get involved in this yet another forever war, at least for now. Iran and Israel exchanged strikes in April and October of last year, we all know that, marking their most dramatic escalation between the regional arch rivals. And so yes, I mean, very interesting news, and I was positively surprised to see this information, because yet again, I mean, if you take a wider look at the steps, policies of the White House, I mean, you might get assumption that current administration is really tries to take out US from all the conflict areas that US is involved currently. They started a bombing campaign against Yemen. That was mistake. But maybe once they will achieve some agreement with Iran, they will stop attacking Yemen. But this information is good, by the way. This information is good. If US refuse to participate in Israeli strike on Iran, that's good news, right? Although Israel itself might try to attack Iran on its own. They do have some capabilities to do so, but yet again, Iran can flatten Israel, by the way, in that case. One should keep in mind that, and Iran already demonstrated that it has all the necessary means to retaliate and retaliate hard. And they have so many missiles that they can actually flatten the Israel. So, I mean, I really hope people of Israel will wake up and remove these psychopaths from the government, because it's a shame. It's a shame what has happened to this country, man. Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Emir of Qatar visits Moscow to meet Putin. So Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, has left for an official visit to Moscow, where he will meet with the President Vladimir Putin. The Q&A agency reported, according to him, the Emir will discuss with the Russian leader relationships between the states, way to strengthen their develop them in various areas, as well as their most important issues and events in the region and are of mutual interests. And this is important stuff, by the way, because Qatar is a major player when it comes to energy, right? Liquefied natural gas, to be more precise, and good working, friendly relationships between Moscow and the Qatari-Russian and the Qatari's energy companies is definitely something that deserves attention. And so yes, great news, by the way. Great news. Russia also might mediate, by the way, between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, Qatar and United Arab Emirates, right? They have quite rough relationships, especially Saudis and Qataris. And even though both countries are allies of US, seems like US did not really bother much to resolve the issues that these two countries have, or kingdoms, right? And well, Russia can play some positive role in that. And I think Emir of Qatar will be grateful to Russia for Moscow's role in the escalation between Washington and Tehran. And I'm 100% convinced, by the way, when recently Witkoff, especially in the way of Trump, visited Moscow, Iran was a topic of discussion too. Not just bilateral relationships between Russia and US, not just Ukrainian crisis, but Iran also, and the ways to de-escalate between US and Iran. And I'm 100% convinced Moscow played positive role in that. And maybe it's Moscow that persuade Trump to choose diplomatic way and not go along with the demands of Netanyahu's regime in Israel with this absolutely crazy idea to attack Israel. So interesting, by the way, interesting. I mean, Moscow's position on the global stage, by the way, is becoming more and more important as time goes by, and no one can ignore that. It is what it is. RIA Novosti is reporting that EU abandons the idea of banning Russian LNG imports. Media reports, well, what a surprise, man. they love to act tough, by the way, in EU bureaucracy, right? They love to act tough, but when it comes to calculations, when it comes to math, by the way, there is at least several people there that can actually calculate something and tell these psycho bureaucrats that they can say whatever they want, but European economies will just collapse if economical ties with Russia will be completely halted. And that's when this kind of news is coming from Europe. EU has abandoned the idea of introducing a ban on imports of the Russian liquefied natural gas due to resistance from some governments and their uncertain situation regarding alternative sources. Reuters reports citing European officials. And it is on background of this news, by the way. This information that Qatar's emir is in Moscow, importance of this visitor is even higher, right? Even higher, because we are talking about two major players on our world LNG market, world's gas market, right? There are also other countries. Australia is much bigger player when it comes to LNG than Russia, for now at least. Australia is either number one, either number two. Qatar and Australia are competing with each other, right? There are some other countries, but Russia is also becoming a major player when it comes to LNG, liquefied natural gas. So yes, I guess in 17th package of sanctions against Russia that EU is working on, they're not going to be ban on Russian LNG. And there are a few more news, dear friends. RIA Novosti is reporting that US issues a new ultimatum to China, which is not good, by the way. So Washington might raise their duties on Chinese exports to 245%, the White House website reported. So as a result of retaliatory actions, China now faces a duty on imports to the United States of up to 245%, the publication said. It's not yet faces, it's not already 245%, but it's a ultimatum that if China will continue resisting to US, then Washington might raise their tariffs up to 245%. And this is crazy, by the way. This is clearly crazy. This will harm US much more than it will harm China. I guess this is part of the game for now, because I cannot believe that US economical bloc in US government does not understand what they will do with inflation in a country if they will continue these tariff wars, right? And what they will do eventually with the dollar. So therefore, I guess this is just part of the game, so that when eventually Washington and Beijing start talking about de-escalating, Washington wants to be just in a little bit better position, possibly. But if they will really go ahead with 245% tariffs, this is crazy, man. I don't think they're gonna do it. It's just too crazy. But threat is there, by the way. Ultimatum is there, and we all know how China reacts on ultimatums. And they don't give a damn about it, right? And just because they've been threatened, China may actually further intensify their stance when it comes to trade with the US, further strengthen their position. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that due to this whole craziness that is happening on the world markets, all these tariff wars, trade wars, and so on, and also due to somewhat collapse, or maybe not complete, but a collapse of strength of the dollar, US dollar, more and more investors are wary about the future of the world economy, and they are investing heavily in gold, and gold prices hit new all-time records due to this all development. So the price of gold has once again broke their record, breaking their 3,300 mark according to trading data. And dear friends, veterans of our community probably remember that 2 or 3 years ago, whenever I was talking about economy and finances, I was always highlighting that I'm not an economical expert, not financial expert. I'm sharing just my opinion, right? But I was saying always that I was predicting that uncertainty on world economy gonna increase. And I was saying that I had some arguments for that, but I was always saying that gold, eventually investors will go for commodities, different commodities, because they will feel this is more safe way to invest than US dollar or the stock markets. And I was predicting that gold gonna reach unprecedented levels, and we are there, by the way. Veterans of our community remember that, isn't it? If I had the opportunity 2 or 3 years ago to invest in gold and invest big, then I would have quite significant profits on that, isn't it? Gold is, of course, not for profit. Gold is for savings, You are not losing on gold, but situation is such a crazy on the markets that gold is increasing in price more and more and more, and actually it is becoming quite profitable to invest in gold, and this process will continue. This process will continue because why would it stop? World is just entering this period of mayhem, right? Economical or otherwise. So yes, gold prices are on all-time high. And if whomever invested in the gold in previous years, they're gonna be quite happy with themselves and for their correct call to invest in this metal. And this is it for now, dear friends. This is it for now. Hopefully you will find this update informative and interesting, useful. And if so, please click that like button if you have not already. Leave some commentary just about anything, any topic, dear friends, will help with the algorithm and to reach wider audience. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you want to support her and can afford it, you can do it through several means, through PayPal platform, through Buy Me a Coffee. Sorry, I don't have Buy Me a Coffee, by the way. I've been blocked there. Through PayPal, through Boosty, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page, where I have some extra content as my thank for support on regular basis. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who already supported. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.